Soldier may have the second highest health pool in the game, but if he is committed in a bad spot, this health disappears fast. Soldier does have a get out of jail free card in the form of rocket jumping, which means he can hastily jump away at any sign of trouble. This allows him to position more aggressively with much less risk than other slower classes. Despite this, positioning as Soldier is very important. Having perfect rocket aim or godlike movement won't save you from getting headshot from across the map or being juggled by a Demoman. This is where good positioning and game sense come in. Team Fortress 2 is an extremely positional game. Once a certain level of mechanical ability is reached by both parties, positioning, game sense, and teamwork become the deciding factors. An important concept to keep in mind is that positioning is dynamic and depends heavily on the state of the game. There is no magical spot that is the absolute best place to stand at all times. The best spot on the map is going to change based on the objective, team compositions, number advantages, and many other factors. The ability to adapt to a situation and find the right positioning is key to playing well against skilled players. I have been playing Soldier for more than 1,000 hours and I am still constantly learning new things, but I think I've developed a strong sense for the fundamentals of Soldier positioning. I'll start this video off with some TF2 theory that will benefit not just Soldier players, but all TF2 players. You will notice some classes are much more effective at punishing poor positioning than others, but all classes in TF2 can still be effectively countered with good positioning. Sniper may be poorly designed, and he is certainly an oppressive force on the battlefield, but he can't hurt you if he can't see you. Sniper can be further countered by preventing him from even peeking a sightline in the first place. Demoman is a similar case. When he has space to play at his ideal range, his high damage area of effect weapons can feel suffocating. Just like Sniper, stopping Demoman from getting to his ideal position in the first place is quite effective. The theme here is that having space, room, or maintaining map control is incredibly important. You can see this concept everywhere in TF2 if you know where to look. For example, if your team is getting spawn camped by 3 Demomen, then you quite literally have no space. The other team controls the entirety of the map by simply holding 2 or 3 tiny doorways. When you really think about it, nothing in TF2 matters except for the objective. The game doesn't care how many frags you get or whether or not you get a 20 kill streak, it only cares about the payload or the capture point or the intelligence if you're crazy enough to play capture the flag. To be able to complete any of these objectives, you must be able to move around the map, so having map control is incredibly important. The spawn camping example is a bit extreme, but the same concept applies to a more normal situation. The other team might only control the doors between your spawn and the control point. You might be able to break this hold, but the other team could still control the capture point and the doors that lead to it. Controlling these choke points is the first fundamental of positioning as a soldier. Effectively controlling choke points means your team is controlling the map and thus the objective. This is relevant on both offense and defense, since on offense your team will need to take map control in order to complete the objective, and on defense you will obviously need to maintain it. As a soldier, you are well equipped to control these choke points, especially the very claustrophobic ones that can often be found on the flanks. Soldier is arguably at his strength when playing these flanks, but he can certainly help lock down the main pass if he needs to. Controlling a tight choke point is pretty simple as Soldier. You can easily spam rockets in when you see an opponent trying to push through. Depending on the geometry, it might be best to simply pre-fire rockets since you can't see when somebody is trying to push through. If you place your rockets well, you have guaranteed splash damage, and if the enemy commits too far into the choke, you can just juggle them for an easy kill. The biggest challenge in this situation is ammo management. Make sure you keep at least one rocket loaded in case you have to jump away. Maybe the other team is able to get through your choke point, or one of the other entrances your team should be watching. You will also want to make sure you have some rockets left in reserve for the next team fight, since your team probably won't be able to hold the other doors forever. For this reason, I try to keep an eye on the other entrances when possible, since in a casual game there won't be any communication if they get through. If you do not, or are unable to watch the other doors, you might get flanked and die. In case it wasn't incredibly obvious, dying is bad. Our positioning is meant to mitigate the risk of dying as much as possible in most cases. Ideally, as a soldier, you want to be taking fights when your target is in a choke point. This makes your splash much easier to hit because their movement is limited. Many choke points have a ceiling, so they can't easily use your rockets to surf away. Furthermore, if there are multiple enemies in the choke, they will likely all take damage from your rocket's area of effect. Scout is a great example of this. When he's in a choke point, he is one of, if not the easiest classes to secure a kill on. Once the scout is through the choke and has space to move around, he is arguably the hardest class for a soldier to kill. While holding choke points seems like it would only be relevant for defending, it is an important skill for offense as well. Like I mentioned earlier, when your team takes map control when pushing, you will need to hold onto it for long enough to complete the objective. I also find that when flanking, having a choke point to fall back to as a safety net is quite useful. Looking at this cascade game, I've gotten behind the other team. This engineer and medic spot me, and I back out from the fight since they have vaccinator resistance. I have a feeling that the engineer is overconfident and that he will chase me, so I focus on my crosshair placement. They overextend through the choke and I am able to easily finish them off. This last bit might be obvious, but I'll mention it anyways. Not all choke points are doorways. Take the scout chasing me into this drop down on Cascade, for example. Another example is this spot on Swiftwater Last. While where I'm shooting my rockets isn't a doorway, it still essentially functions as a choke point that I can hold to maintain control of this area of the map. The second fundamental of soldier positioning is playing the high ground, which this clip also demonstrates. If you have spent any time at all watching soldier videos on YouTube, I'm sure you've heard this advice before. Being on the high ground gives soldier a number of advantages. Most obvious is it makes hitting splash rockets much easier. Being on the high ground also protects a large part of your hitbox from players below. You can essentially use the floor of the high ground as a corner to only expose your hitbox when you are firing a rocket down. Furthermore, bombing off the high ground means that your jump will be much higher, which is ideal for many of the same reasons. So if being up high makes it easier to deal damage, harder to take damage, and improves your high bombs, why would you ever not be there? Ideally, you would just be able to sit on the high ground at all times, completely uncontested, but usually this is not going to be the case. Oftentimes, the height you want to stand on is in a sniper sightline, vulnerable to demo spam, or soldier bombs, and lots of other things that can kill you. At the end of the day, whether or not high ground is safe is going to come down to map control. Height that is currently safe might become unsafe if the other team is able to peek their sniper down a certain lane, for example. That being said, there are 3 common reasons to leave the high ground or to not be there in the first place. Firstly, if the height becomes unsafe like I just mentioned. This clip of Barnbless Last is a great example. Blue team has Ubered into lockers. If I commit to playing on either high ground spot, I am basically guaranteeing that I will die and lose all of my banner charge. For that reason, I drop down to play with the medic, and when I'm healthy, I recommit for just long enough to get some damage in to build my banner before I drop down again. The other team is not pushing the cart, and they really aren't doing much with the space that they've taken, so I'm safe to repeat this a few more times. I get my banner, and the other team still has the height, but once I have my banner activated and I am healthy, the risk of me dying drops significantly, and I'm able to clear out the height for my team. This clip also demonstrates the second reason to give up the height, to push your advantage. If you have an opportunity to get an important pick and can get away with it, it is oftentimes better to give up your positioning in order to bomb your target and guarantee the kill. This opportunity can manifest in many ways. You might simply see an opportunity arise to take a 1v1 that is in your favor, such as a spy who is behind your team. You can jump at the target, get the frag, grab a health pack, and retake the high ground. The gunboats allow you to take these opportunistic fights more often due to the decrease in self-damage taken while rocket jumping. Similarly, if an opportunity to get behind the other team presents itself, it can be worth it to give up the height. Whether or not flanking is worth it is going to depend on the other team's class composition. For example, are there snipers that you could get an easy kill on, or maybe a medic? Are the players that you would be fragging worth the map control you might be giving up by leaving the height? This decision also depends on your team. Is your team applying enough pressure to keep the other team distracted, or will the other team just turn around and 1v12 you? The third reason I find myself leaving the height is to better support my team in some way. For example, if somebody needs to stop the cart, or maybe if a flank is being left unwatched. Sometimes I just run out of ammo and will jump straight back to the height once I've gotten some. Maybe the other team is mostly all dead and you need to leave the height to take some more space. The main takeaway here is that Soldier is very mobile, so you should always be asking yourself, is where I'm standing the best spot right now, or is there something better that I could be doing? Moving on to the third fundamental of Soldier positioning, playing health and ammo packs. Everyone who's played more than a few hours of TF2 knows what health and ammo packs do, but many players don't realize their full potential. If a soldier is 1v1ing someone and he controls a medium health pack, he functionally has 300 HP because he can take the pack if he takes too much damage. A fight that might not normally be favorable can be turned into a piece of cake if there's a pack nearby. If you combine the advantage of having a nearby health pack with other positioning fundamentals such as strong high ground and advantageous choke points, Soldier can be extremely hard to kill. Take this Frontier game as an example. I am able to get into this spot and shoot rockets down at the red team. If red wants to hold this point, they will have to move forward and take more map control, but they can't really do that when I'm behind them threatening to kill their backline players, spam their sentries, and shoot splash rockets at their respawners. They are definitely going to want to kill me, but it is hard because this hallway is very choky and I have this large health pack. Because I was able to get a few easy kills spamming from high ground, and because red invested so many resources into killing me, we were able to capture the point. Having a health pack nearby is not always possible or necessary, but having one nearby provides a safety net. Furthermore, having a pack in mind to jump away to if you need to hastily retreat is very useful as well. The same reasoning is true for when you are flanking. If you have a pack to land on when you rocket jump behind, you'll be making up for the health you spend in order to jump in. An added bonus of taking packs when you are flanking is that you are denying the other team from getting those health and ammo packs for another 10 seconds. Another benefit of playing near health packs is that low HP players are attracted to them, leading to some easy one rocket kills. The fourth and final fundamental of positioning is the objective. I mean this in both a literal sense, meaning the payload or the capture point or the seal on Selbian, as well as in a more abstract way. I mentioned previously that the only thing that matters in a TF2 game is the objective. This is true if your goal is trying to win, but what really matters the most is if you are enjoying the game. What I mean by this is, if you're going for a high kill streak, your positioning should reflect your goal. You should play a bit more passively, going for spam rockets and only taking fights that you are basically guaranteed to win. Playing in a very risk-averse manner will maximize your chance of getting a large kill streak. If you're playing to win, then you should be prepared to sacrifice your kill streak to stop the other team from capturing the next payload checkpoint. All four of these fundamentals are simple to understand, but they are all assuming one thing, that the Soldier player's team has enough map control. You can't stand on the height, control health packs, play the objective, or lock down choke points if your team isn't even able to leave their spawn area. Luckily for you, Soldier is also very good at creating space for his team. Soldier, being a generalist, is able to achieve this in many ways. His banners are very good at gaining map control, especially the battalion's backup. When I pop my battalions, myself and my nearby teammates are able to peek sniper sightlines without risking getting instantly killed because of the full crit resistance. Battalion's damage reduction also greatly reduces damage taken from projectile spam because the reduction is applied before damage fall off, meaning that long range spam does almost nothing. Having an active battalion's backup makes you and your team super tanky, allowing for you to aggressively peek to secure frags. I usually back up to heal right as the banner is about to end, and then try to take the space I just created by getting those frags. The conch and the buff banner also help create space by encouraging your teammates to go and do something, but they aren't quite as powerful as the battalions. Outside of their banners, Soldier can also create space by getting frags or by destroying sentries. But Soldier's most powerful space-making tool is high bombing. A Soldier in the skybox is a rather frightening sight for many classes. If you aren't careful, he can sink rockets on you to kill you almost instantly, and even if he doesn't, he can still land right on top of you and easily take you out with 2 to 3 rockets. For this reason, teams who are getting bombed are usually going to focus their attention on killing the Soldier, because if they don't, the Soldier will get a frag or two and might even escape with his life. This means that when you bomb as a Soldier, your team can push because you will be distracting for them, making their push much easier. If your team has any spies, decloaking when you are bombing is also strong because they will often be too distracted to remember to turn around. If you know that the other team is going to focus on you when you bomb, then it is probably a good idea to bomb to a spot that you won't be instantly killed when you land. Ideally, you will land on high ground behind the other team, or on a health pack, or maybe both. This way, you are drawing eyes for your team to push and landing behind the other team. The other team then has to decide between giving up map control to go back to kill you, or holding their ground and risking getting pinched from behind. Once you are behind, you can also look to take out snipers to further open up the map for your team, or maybe take out an engineer's spawn teleporter. It would take forever to explain all the possibilities that exist for Soldier to support his team in this way, but hopefully you can start to see what I'm trying to get at. It isn't always possible to bomb in or behind because some teams might have a strong sentry or maybe a really good pyro or scout. If your bombs aren't achieving anything, Soldier can still help his team gain map control. Sometimes teams forget that there are multiple routes to the objective. I find that the best door to push is the one that the least players on your team is actively pushing. If everybody on your team is only going one way, holding map control is very easy for the other team. If you pressure the less used doorways, you are forcing the other team to rotate players to prevent you from getting a flank for free. In this way, you are still performing the same role as if you were bombing. You're drawing attention by threatening to get important frags. Of course, if the flank is left completely unwatched, you are free to get easy frags from behind. A perfect example of this is pushing Swiftwater second. Most pubbers seem to forget that there is a route up top. Oftentimes, this door is left completely unwatched, so I can just waddle through. From here, I have many options such as jumping in the mansion to look for snipers, or dropping down to kill players holding tunnel from behind. Anyways, I think you get the idea. At this point, I'm not really talking about positioning anymore, so I hope you enjoyed the video.
When Armad died at the same time.
Kill soldier?
What the hell?
What the?
What? How does he get away with that?
What the fuck?
Literally on my screen, he actually